Coming up next is a fireside chat by our presenting partners, Skit.ai, based on fueling customer obsession with voice AI. Skit.ai is an augmented voice intelligence platform helping businesses modernize their contact centers and customer experience. They work with industry leaders such as Axis Bank on elevating CX and driving the bank's customer-centric approach through the voice channel. I now welcome, with a very, very happy heart, Mr. Ratan Kesh, Executive Vice President and Head of Retail Operations and Service, Axis Bank, for a fireside chat, and Mr. Richard Cho, Head of Products, Skit.ai, for moderating the session on fueling customer obsession with voice AI. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome this dynamic duo. Thank you so much. I would now like to hand over the proceedings to Mr. Richard, and I hope you enlighten us with your sides. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faisal.
Thank you.
It's my privilege to be here today. Thank you so much for having us. It's really an honor to be here, especially with Mr. Ratan Kesh. For those of you that don't know him, he's the Executive Vice President for Consumer Banking Operations and Service at Axis Bank, and he's one of our first clients at Skit. And so I think hopefully he'll have lots of insights for you as you're considering your own voice implementations as we work through this. So I think without further ado, maybe, I know we've talked in our pre-discussions around your role, but maybe you can help the audience understand your role better at Axis Bank.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. It's good to be back in person after a long time. So thanks for having us here in this conference, and I hope to share some of my learnings. So I take care of entire consumer banking operations. So consumer banking would mean all of you customers who would be having relationship with Axis Bank, the entire retail part of the bank. The operations is what I handle. I also handle the customer service for the bank, and that includes, of course, the contact center, the voice, non-voice, regulatory, and related areas. So that's my role, practically. One of the things that I've been telling Richard that I define my role to be more as solutions provider. So while I handle the consumer banking operations part, I do venture into every part of the bank to find some problem which I can solve. And to that extent, I think some of you who are providing cool solutions to some of the most interesting problems, I'll be happy to sort of interact with you and see how we can partner.
And what I'd love to hear, as we were talking, was particularly your philosophy of customer obsession. So maybe you could talk to us about your philosophy of customer obsession at Axis Bank and how that led you on your journey to voice automation.
Yeah, so Axis Bank is pretty old bank now, 27-year-old bank, and we now call it as Axis 3.0. Practically, we have gone through two sort of rounds of revolution in the bank. Now we are at Axis 3.0, which started with the new leadership team that came in around about 2019. And somewhere around 2020, January 20, in fact, we went ahead with our new ad campaign. We call it Dil Se Open, open with a heart. Essentially, that was meant to see that how do you inculcate a culture within the organization to be able to invite customers with an open mind, be flexible to provide solutions. So that's been our hallmark. We have now, very recently, we have moved to one notch above, and we are now seeing we would move into a customer obsession journey, which would practically mean that we will do everything keeping the customers in mind, and we would like to be seen as distinctive in customer experience, not just in India, but in Asia. And our stated goal is to be the most distinctive customer experience company, bank in Asia. And that's our stated goal. And in that sense, with so much happening on the digital side of banking, so we are creating a completely new digital bank, which is creating end-to-end digital journeys. We are also converting our existing bank and digitizing most of these old banking journeys into digital solution. Now, as we do more and more that, you will realize that for a large bank like ours, the volume that you handle, we will always have some friction. And every friction would land into one of the inbound call center or a voice or a non-voice unit. To that extent, really upping the game in the contact center piece and on the voice side is going to be extremely important for our customer obsession journey. So every customer journey that we are creating and keeping that in mind. And at the same time, whatever friction that happens, how do you solve the customer's problem? We are actually designing, keeping the customer obsession in mind. So that's how important it is for us.
It's so exciting to hear your North Star being customer obsession and how that's fueling your digital transformation. Maybe one kind of fun question to start. Will bots replace humans, do you think?
So it's a good question, and I've been sort of toying this whole idea when, in fact, we started talking about voice bot even before the pandemic came. So somewhere around July 19 is when I sort of started talking to Skit.ai. They used to be vernacular.ai then, and we've been talking to them and sort of embarked into the journey. And of course, like everything else, it took some bit of a time for us to launch it. And then one of the initial fundamental ball game was that, are we going to replace human being with bot? And as we went into the journey and we launched in the middle of pandemic, and that time it really replaced human beings. Because I ran a 3,000-seater call center, the agents couldn't come to office. When we are the first sort of company to create 500 call center seats, work from home with endpoint security, with voice recording solution. But we still needed a lot more than that. So in a sense, the voice bot actually replaced human being for that period of time to an extent. And it helps. But our philosophy is very, very clear. We are not going to use bot to replace human being. To us, human and humanoid will work together to deliver the superior experience to the customer. And therefore, our vision is that it can begin with a bot, but it should end with a human being, wherever necessary, both for inbound and outbound. And I can talk a little bit more about what's our vision around the voice bot and the integrated solution that we are designing.
Yeah, that's so great to hear. I mean, I think we would agree that it's really about augmenting the human agents and helping them by replacing some of the more rote kind of routine things that they would ordinarily do that's probably more boring for them, enabling them to get to more higher level activities. Right. You know, I think we take the same view. Could you tell us about the problems that you were facing at Axis Bank when you decided to do voice automation?
So our problems are not unique. I think I would say it's a common problem for most companies like ours who are handling. So I do handle roughly around 2.5 lakh call every day. So practically, and then there are 28 IVR services that I have. Now, if a customer is to call up and avail the IVR services, it would mean the customer call up and say, press 1 for Hindi, press 2 for Marathi, press 3 for English. Then you say, press 1 for savings account, press 2 for current account. Then you say, press 1 for debit card, press 2 for credit card, press 3 for prepaid, press 4 for Forex. Then you say, for PIN, you do this, and then you say, for green PIN, you do this. Now, the whole traversal, IVR traversal is pretty long, right? I mean, customers don't get an interest in really going through the entire traversal journey. They will press 9 and talk to an agent. And that's a lot of cost for me. So one of the things that I wanted to do clearly was to make sure that a bot would simply understand the customer's requirement, the intent. So the customer says, I need a green PIN for my debit card. It says, is it ending 2534? It says yes. Your green PIN is sent to your mobile number. So that clearly reduces the traversal time. So that's one of the requirements that we had. The second, of course, we had a bunch of services which were there in the API services, and that were used for IVR. So our idea is that why do you need an agent to solve and answer these problems or queries for the customers? Can the bot handle it? So we started up with 7, then we took it to 16. Today we do 28. Although 100% call gets routed through the bot, 28 services are handled end-to-end. The remaining ones are actually dropped to a right agent. So intelligent call routing was the another area. So oftentimes, a call may land into an agent who doesn't understand the particular product. We've got multi-product call center. It will land into an agent which they don't know how to solve that customer's problem. And that then results into not so great experience for the customer. And then it impacts my ability to sell a product. So I was telling Richard that we do a fair amount of service-driven sales and revenue generation from my unit. So if it lands into the right agent through an intelligent call routing, the agent is able to solve the customer's problem quickly, instantly, and provide a delightful experience. I can then convert that into a meaningful sales because every customer would generally need one or two banking products. So that gives it. So these are the problem statements. So clearly one, IVR traversal time. B, do I really need a human being to solve all problems? Can I have the simpler ones done by a bot? And third, of course, is can I route it to the right agent so that I can solve the problems, provide delightful experience, and then sell a product.
And how have the results been?
Sorry?
The results.
Yeah, so it's been a journey. Initially, we have had a lot of challenges, and it's easier said than done. I think some of the companies, if here in the audience, are actually exploring to look at a similar voice bot solution, I would say it's not easy. We had to sort of train the engine with million hours of data point because India is a very complex country to have so many languages, so many dialects, the sarcasm, the long pause, the short talks. So in Marathi, in Bombay, we say barabar, barabar. In Amrita in Calcutta, she will say, Ore Bapre. I mean, what doesn't understand all of this? Like, you got to really make a meaning out of all of that. So the homonyms, and so it's a huge amount of game to really understand. Then learning the product. So like credit card, debit card, prepaid card, it's a product. Then you have got these banking terminologies, which are fairly complex. We use AMB very commonly. AMB is average monthly balance. How do you make a meaning out of it? Customers don't understand it. So it's a fairly complex one, I would say. But I'm delighted today, as I speak today, the fact that 20% of my calls are truncated end-to-end in a voice bot. It's a lot of value for me. That's huge value. And that's like 50% of IVR service calls have already got truncated. I've been able to reduce 30 to 34 minutes of IVR traversal time. It's a huge value. AHT comes down significantly. Customers are delighted. We have doubled my sales revenue, although a bit of an impact in the last financial year because of COVID. So from a value, today we have more than double the revenue this year. And I would attribute some part of it to the voice bot solutions and the ability to delight customers to that extent. So today, as I speak, I'm happy. But I think journey is fairly long. I think we've got a serious roadmap ahead of us in phase 2, phase 3. And I think we've got a lot of work in hand for us to do.
Those are some amazing results, though.
Yeah.
I know in talking about this earlier, you said there were some other factors that were involved as well, some other considerations that you had, some other parts of the program as you put it together. So in your mind, what were the key elements of getting the program right?
So you're asking about the other solutions that we brought together along with the voice bot. Yeah. So look, of course, it forced us to create more API services because we were getting initial successes out of the existing APIs that we had. So now we put everything together. So all the API services that we have been using across internet banking, mobile banking, we have now brought it together. We have created new API services to be able to consume by the voice bot. And those are now being used by, let's say, my mobile banking app, by my chat bot, and we are now going to use it for email bot. So that's one thing that has happened. Second, we created a good knowledge portal, which is still work in progress, but it's a uniform bank-wide knowledge portal. So ultimately, the bot is able to understand the intent and the customer's requirement. It has to still fall back on a knowledge portal. Now, that knowledge portal, to me, is the most powerful tool, and it has to be the most comprehensive one. So that's something that we call it Avigyan. In fact, we'll launch both AXA, which is our voice bot, and Avigyan together on the same day. And that's something which is pretty powerful. Few more things that we're working on, which is the speech analytics. and a service data lake. And I can take a little bit of time to sort of explain what are those things that are happening. So clearly, bot has been able to understand the intent and solve the simpler problems. Bot is able to understand the intent and route it to the right agent. Now here comes the conversation between the bot and the human being. So I have got speech recording and a speech analytics, which is making a meaning out of it, including the sentiments part of it. And then it picks up those keywords and connects to a knowledge portal. The knowledge portal is now able to show some relevant questions which could be the more likely problem that the customer may be facing. Then I've got a back-end service data lake. All the conversations that are happening across different channels, whether it is email, CRM, call center, branch, social media, all of these are brought into a service data lake. And then service data lake is also powering it. Now here is an agent who is able to see the conversation trail of the context, the API services that you have to solve the customer's problem, the knowledge portal, and the customer history of service data lake. This is the real powerful solution. Now this is still not there, but this is something that is the vision that we are building it together for us to be able to create a wholesale solution for it. And once you have it, so what we are already doing it through the service data lake, for example, is that we are able to identify a customer who is likely to escalate. You are able to identify a customer who is hassled customer already. So the whole agent who is going to handle it is different. The whole conversation, the mechanism is very, very different for a hassle customer vis-a-vis a normal customer. So it's not the bot, but the whole ecosystem is the true power of it in my mind.
Yeah, that's an amazing solution that you've constructed.
Yeah.
I'm sure as you were doing this, there were lots of voice bot providers that you spoke with. What were your considerations as you were choosing who to work with?
What are the other?
Your considerations as you were choosing who to work with.
Yeah, so obviously we worked with, we've been exploring quite a few partners, and with due credit to all the partners, everybody is doing good job and sort of improving. And I see quite a few other logos around. When we chose Skit.ai, which is vernacular.ai then, 2 or 3 fundamental principles that we adopted. Number one was that clarity of thoughts in terms of what is the product roadmap that they have and does it align with my solution roadmap. That is number one. Number 2, flexibility to be able to understand my requirement rather than coming up with a package solution and say, I'm going to just give you that product and take it type. Because in my context, it's very, very important to be able to integrate with multiple other technology systems that I have. So you got to have ability to integrate with my core system, whether it is core lending system or a core banking system. You should be able to integrate with my contact center solution. You should be able to integrate with my CRM. We run something called a Saksam, which is single screen. You got to integrate with that. So your ability to integrate is important. And third was, again, very important to have engineers in India who will be readily available for me to solve those problems. Because when I call someone and you say, okay, I'm not available now, it's a different time geography, time zone, or I'll be able to raise a ticket and I come back with a solution, it doesn't work for me. So that's the third criteria. And fourth, of course, price is an important factor. And I think in my mind, as I speak today, the value that you deliver, the price actually gets offset pretty quickly. So that's not necessarily a real problem, you know.
I think it's a great list of things to consider. What would you have done differently if you could start a project all over again? One,
clearly, I would have been a little more careful because I think probably we underestimated the fact that it requires really large amount of data to be able to train, and we haven't been ready with all of that. So my phase 1 took longer than expected to sort of launch, simply because we didn't have enough data points to be able to train the bot. So that's one that I think we missed out. Second, we didn't anticipate the fact that we thought that it could only solve very simple problem, but the fact that technology is constantly getting upgraded, it does have an ability to solve more complex problem. So you could have anticipated this well in advance, created those APIs to run parallelly to be able to move faster in terms of more services. So it took a lot of time for us to come to 28 services. My belief is that we could have done much faster. So if I had to go back and do it, I would have probably done more data points to train, kept more APIs ready so that I could launch it faster. And the third is that what I'm now realizing that I can integrate with other core systems, the knowledge portal, the service data lake, the speech analytics. Probably on hindsight, these are learnings for anyone else who'd like to look at it, rather than going for a simple bot solution, which could be a beginning, but you should keep the roadmap ahead, roadmap ready, because these are real power that you can deliver. That's how I would look at it.
Talking about that roadmap, what does the future ahead look like for you?
So future roadmap is exactly that. So we're going to integrate all of these to provide a full-scale solution. That's number one. And my vision is that every call inbound that happens to the bank, which is a customer trying to reach out to the bank for any services, query, complaint, or a request, or any employee out of the 70, 80,000 employees that you have across the country, they are often reaching out, the sales guys, the front-end guys, they're all reaching out to back-end teams with a lot of phone call here and there. So seeking clarity on products, clarity on forms, clarity on procedures, etc., the status of their request for the customers. I would like all of this to be going through the bot first and then come to a human agent. So that's one vision that I have. Second is any external outbound call that we are doing, whether it is for selling or collection, anything else that you are doing, including the RM calls, I would like to see that at some stage, a good part of that should be done by the bot first, and then you drop to an agent, and then so agent can do more meaningful conversations. So my belief is in terms of volume, you could handle good 50 to 60% of the conversation, both inbound and outbound using the bot. But the more complex one will be done by an agent, and those will be the more important ones as well. Therefore, the agent quality will need to be upgraded constantly. And that's where I believe that we will have both bot and human being working together to deliver the superior experience to the customers.
That's an amazing vision of the augmented future ahead of us. Yeah. I know we want to kind of wrap up and also keep on time, but also I'd love to have time for the audience to have questions if they have any. But maybe one last question for me is, I know there are some fintech players here. What do you say to the fintech players that are looking to disrupt traditional banking?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting to see as country India, we are progressing very, very rapidly with so many interesting fintech players coming and disrupting the industry, and it's very, very fascinating to note that. So our considered view as a bank is that irrespective of what fintech players would do, you would still need a bank as a platform to test your product and grow yourself and provide the solution. So you need a bank or an underlying company to be able to test it out. So what our view is that in most areas we are wanting to look at partnerships. We be the guinea pig, and you bring the solution, and we deliver it together for the customer to deliver superior experience, to solve problems or sell products. So that's one thing that we would like to do. In specific areas where we believe it's our core capability, because the fintech players do bring the technology, but the understanding about compliance, the understanding about the banking processes, the regulation is something that we know well. And there are examples in the industry who would have probably, and you know some of these recent news that are floating around of violation in compliance. So not necessarily becoming a cool fintech can necessarily make you a winner in the market. It's very important to have the knowledge about this whole compliance, regulation, etc. The second part is that wherever we believe that it's very, very important for us, our survival, we will build our own solutioning. And in that sense, maybe we can have an even deeper partnership, including that of sort of us becoming a stakeholder and an investor in some of these companies. So therefore, I don't see that we are exactly competing. Somewhere we will partner and be the platform. Somewhere we will create our own solution to be able to run our own bank in the most plausible way. So that's how we look at as a fintech partnership.
Are there any questions for Ratan? So I think there's one up here. Why don't I hand you the mic?
Hi, thanks. Thanks for the insights, really helpful. I think there are 3 benefits that you kind of mentioned, right? The traversal time reduction, which I think is a customer experience impact. Then you mentioned going directly into the agent who helps you on the sales upside. You also mentioned 20% reduction in your calls. This is over how much of a period of a time, and have you kind of hit the saturation on it? So is it more diminishing returns in terms of how much more you are able to reduce the savings, or you're continuing to kind of find the savings?
So, so thanks for the question. So yeah, so it helped me reduce the traversal time. That applies to 100% of the calls. In terms of percentages, 20% we have reached now for, these are the 28 services which are most simpler ones. But we are building APIs to have more conversational capability, and that requires a bit more deeper technology understanding, which is what we are working on. While we do today offer multilingual, but I think broadly I would say it's Hindi, English. But we are building a very specific solution with our partner for the Bharat Bank. Bharat Bank is the rural segment wherein we will need a lot more deeper language, linguistic understanding capability. Once you do that, that percentages will go up even more, and that's what it is. But more importantly, once I bring all the other surrounds, I'll clearly know the customers exactly. It's bit of omni-channel solutioning, because I know the customers is a hassle customer. I know the customer's got an existing problem which is ready in hand. So when you have an inbound call, a bot is answering, bot can talk in the context of it, or at least bot can route it to the right person who could handle it in the context of it. So the agent doesn't have to struggle and open all those screens. It will come pop up together with the service data lake of fast 3 interactions, the knowledge portal, and the context of the call which is carried forward by the bot. So it will help me deliver a superior experience. In terms of percentages, it may not improve, but in terms of quality of conversation, it will improve significantly. That's how we look at it.
Thank you for that question. Any other questions? I think there's one more over here.
Hi. My quick question is on the data lake that you highlighted. How does Axis think about the importance of that data lake when it comes to your future cost strategy of building new change?
Future cost strategy or?
Building new change.
Building any change?
Building new change, yeah.
See, and that's a very interesting reason that I have to have the service data lake to be able to be the fundamental principle of more proactive omni-channel service offering, right? Because today, look at the simpler ones. If your checkbook is almost exhausted, you've got 3 or 4 check leaves left, do I reach out to you and say, hey, you seem to have exhausting your checkbook, I want to issue a new one? Or you would have tried buying a product on my website and you couldn't do it, and next day you call up call center for something else. I say, by the way, you tried searching PL on my website. Would you like me to tell you more about it? So that is something which is a fundamental principle for us to create the service data lake, to integrate all conversations the customers are having today. So that's very, very important for us. Does it save cost? Oh, significantly.
No, not from a cost strategy. What I'm saying is, when you get so many queries, right, you know what customer journeys are breaking, right?
Yeah.
So you can leverage that information to decide your
That's
next.
What I'm saying.
Yeah.
So now I know that what are my top call drivers, or top service data lake problem drivers which are leading to customer feeling hassled? Can I go back and recreate the journeys in a manner that customers don't face the problems? And that's something we are working on as part of my customer obsession journey, which is that customer journey mapping that we are creating.
Right. Something that we did it at HSBC, so I'm just trying to
Fantastic.
understand that you're trying to come there.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I think we have time for one last question. There's one over there.
Hi. So I just wanted to know that in the phase 1, so basically what was your launch strategy like? And then after that, when you were successful in that phase, what was your expansion strategy? Was it like horizontal or maybe adding more services or adding maybe going more towards maybe areas? So what was it like? What was the scaling up strategy
So
like?
initially, the first launch was like 3 services only. There it was a bit more to understand the language part of it. Can the bot identify the intent? Than really solving the customer's problem, because that was a very important one for us to do. And very interestingly, in the offline data that you could train, it could go up to somewhere around 76%. And once you launch those 3 services in a CUG environment, it moved from 76 to almost 95% in just about a couple of weeks, because it had more dynamic data to solve it, right? So first was language, intent, as I said, all those multilingual cultural influences and all of those to understand. That was the initial ballgame for us. But once we got success on the 3, the next was, immediate roadmap was for us to have as many APIs available, let's just get into this. Because we now knew that it could sort of solve the customer's problem. And then we integrated to make sure that all 100% call will get routed through the bot, the registered numbers. If the call is coming from the registered mobile number, which is roughly around 70% of the calls, that 100% of the 70% are getting routed through the bot for either a traversal time or a solving end-to-end or routing it to the right agent. So that's happening today.
Okay, so is it like all of your services are now on the automated platform?
All of the services are now moved into the bot.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Richard Cho and Mr. Ratan Kesh, for such an insightful and very, very intuitive perspective fireside chat. We thank you all from UConn. And ladies and gentlemen, can we have a humongous round of applause?